Hi, how you doing today?
Start us appropriately.
Okay. My name is Aaron McManus, and you are listening to the Battle Ready podcast. I am here with my father.
My name is Erwin McManus, and I am so excited about being here today.
And here we are. Are there ever days where you're just like, I don't know if I can do this?
I don't know if you were battle ready this morning.
I don't know. All I
Maybe
know
you're
is
ready for battle, but not ready to do battle.
But honestly,
ready.
I was ready. I was facing some battles this morning.
But because we're committed to our listeners, we are here.
We are.
Because you work on the days that are good, you work on the days that are bad.
But you just don't work on your birthdays.
Bad days and good days, but not birthdays. All right, we want to know that.
Okay. Today, we are going to talk about something very interesting.
Well, it's not really the conversation that you probably would have picked for today, but I can't escape it. I keep thinking about it, and maybe it's my immigration experience as an immigrant from El Salvador and my family's background. But when you're Latin American, you become really aware of those things that become a threat to democracy. And so I want to lay out a scenario, okay, so that no one thinks that I'm being hyperbolic or anti-science or anything like that. So I want to lay out a scenario going, completely believe in the danger of COVID-19, completely concerned about the way it impacts, especially the elderly and the vulnerable and those who have related health issues that make it more dangerous for them. I wear a mask. In fact, we just made some masks for our entire community at Mosaic.
Yeah, they're really cool, actually.
They're really, really cool. And we wanted to
shout out to your friend.
Oh man, to Tom Penn
Yeah.
and his whole team that made these masks for us with Mosaic logo on it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
He's an awesome guy.
And we know that only really these particular medical masks are effective. And so we didn't want to make it look like we were trying to protect people. We wanted to protect people. I want to give this as my context because a lot of times when you say something, everyone goes, oh, wait a minute, you're one of them. But there's two things that really concern me I want to talk about. And they're connected to me. One is executive order, and the other is censorship. What's happened in 2020 is unprecedented in terms of American history, and it really concerns me. And one of them is the use of executive order, not just from the executive branch, but now by states and cities. I think we were looking at it together. You were showing me that, was it FDR?
Yes, Franklin Roosevelt.
Delano Roosevelt used executive order over 3,700 times.
Yeah, it was like just under 36912 or something like that.
Oh, so some crazy number.
Crazy number. We're doing the math that he pretty much had an executive order every day for 12 years.
Right. And so he was elected 4 times.
Yes.
As president. He's the closest we've ever had to.
You don't want to say it, but.
Well, I mean, I obviously I respect, so much what he did.
Yes.
But in terms of a long-sustaining presidency that other countries might call dictatorship.
Yes, or kingship.
Or emperor or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think it was Roosevelt who actually decided after his 3rd or 4th reelection to make sure no other president could be elected that many times.
Yeah.
And so he's the one that established the 2-term.
He shut it down. He's like, no one's ever going to do this again.
But just me. No one else. And so he used executive order as the normal power of the presidency. I just want to go back. I was concerned because it's not even about how many executive orders. I think President Clinton was in the 300s, high 300s, and President Bush was in the high 300s. But I was concerned in the last year of President Obama's presidency, he used executive order as a way to circumvent the power of the Senate or the role of the Senate in very particular decision-making processes. And
it's interesting when we have checks and balances.
Right,
they don't count if you use cash.
And so it wasn't even what he was using executive orders for. It was the approach or the strategy that it was being used for.
Yes.
And I remember in that year saying he needs to be careful because whoever's elected next, because I didn't know if it'd be a Republican or a Democrat, will begin with executive orders and see that as the
invitation, the door opening.
Yeah, it's a perfect tool of the presidency. Right. So it seems to me like when President Trump stepped in, he just began from day one with executive order and said, we have a mechanism. We don't have to go to the Senate. We don't have to work with with the House. We don't really have to worry about these other branches. I can just execute executive order. And
a lot of the stuff that's going on right now was actually predicated by President Obama.
And others in the past. But yes, I do think that last year in his administration had an effect. But here's what my concern, all right, because I'm going, the great thing about presidencies is that they have term limits, and so there's one or two terms that you get max, and we get to vote you in or out. But I feel like we've now moved into a governmental strategy of executive order. We live in Los Angeles, which is inside of California, and I'm trying to remember when we voted on not wearing a mask being illegal. I'm trying to remember when we voted that not staying 6 feet apart was illegal. I'm trying to remember when we voted that restaurants should be closed, that
movie theaters
should be closed, that churches should be closed, that health clubs should be closed, that schools should be closed. I don't remember voting on any of these things that are now the law of the land. And what really struck me the other day is when our governor said that you need to wear a mask when you're in a restaurant in between every bite. And I thought, wow, our governor is trying to control the micro actions of our daily lives right now.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so I'm not even raising the issue of is wearing a mask important or not, or is it significant or not? I'm not even raising the issue of the 6 feet. And every scientist I've read says it's really not 6 feet. It could be 12 feet. It could be 3 feet. Some of it is somewhat arbitrary, but there is scientific or at least statistical evidence for 6 feet. I'm not even arguing any of that. What I'm arguing is, have we moved? Am I going to?
No, I'm like want to rip open, but I'm not going to yet because I'm trying to behave. Keep going.
What I'm arguing is, have we established a new precedent for what kind of society we are, where we are no longer a democracy. We are now a political dictatorship where health is used as the criteria for conformity and obedience and the loss of our freedoms.
It's an electoral dictatorship. We elect the dictator.
So it concerns me because once we establish that.
Wait, hold on. I want to go. We're 7 minutes in. My turn now.
All right.
Here we go. Here's the thing. Let's set the stage a little bit. Let's go back. 12 hours ago, the Dodgers made it to the playoffs. And we're not big baseball people, but we are in the playoffs.
And we're huge Dodger fans.
And it's a different sport in the playoffs.
And we love Cody Bellinger.
It's like golf and Mookie Betts and Justin Turner and Taylor
Seager
and Smith and Jock and Seeger.
All right.
And you have to be done?
And the general manager.
Is it Urias? What a legend last night. I'm going to kiss you on the face.
Sorry, the general manager is
Dave Roberts.
Dave Roberts actually sent me a note one time on a text because of my friend
John Gordon. This is not about you right now.
Sorry, I just got to say, shout out to Dave Roberts. He's awesome.
And John Gordon, who I sent a selfie of us because I was like, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the conversation we were having last night. So we're sitting around, we're watching the baseball game, and every time it felt like I was dozing off for a second because I was so tired because our good friend got married this weekend. They would hit another home run, and then I'm up and screaming, and I'm waking up Edwin's kids and like all these things. But we made it to the World Series. I'm so excited. The Houston Astros, if you live in Houston, you don't deserve it. You should give it back. You should send it to LA, and then you should what? Okay, I'm gonna stop.
No, actually I thought about that yesterday. They should actually default that championship from the Astros, give it to the Dodgers.
They should.
They really should.
Give Kershaw what he deserves. Give Kershaw one of the greatest Dodgers that's ever lived.
And if you could enact
with no Kobe blood in him,
executive order, you would force the Astros to give it up.
100%. Wait, I'm gonna get back. When I said about Kershaw, it's a joke. I absolutely love Clayton Kershaw. I do not care if he doesn't play well in the playoffs. He is consistent the rest of the season when it's still golf and not baseball.
He gets us there.
He does get us there, and he deserves the respect that he's gonna get. Here's the thing: we're having this conversation. We're talking. And all of these guys, what I love about your friends is they're all like different walks of life. They're all different backgrounds. They all live in different places. And one of your friends said, on November 1st, I asked him, how long are you in town? And he goes, on November 1st, I am leaving LA and going back to the free world.
He lives in Florida.
Yeah, the land of the free.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's such an interesting statement because it's very true. And he kind of like asked, do you think LA will riot? And when whoever wins.
LA will riot if Trump wins, but will not riot if Biden wins.
No, but LA will riot if the Lakers win, if the Dodgers win, they'll riot on a Tuesday. LA will riot on a Wednesday morning.
LA is a riot looking for a reason to happen.
LA it looks for a bonfire anywhere.
All right, so back to
this is not a joke. It's not a joke, but but if you live in LA, you know that like it just happens, and it's tough and it's scary, and there's things that like it is not a joke, but there are things that you kind of have to accept with the city. So we have
people leaving LA, moving to
a lot
other states like Tennessee and Texas and Florida, states that have different responses to all the issues that are happening in 220, not just COVID and quarantine, but even economics and taxes and other things.
We have really good friends moving to Texas right now.
Yeah.
We love them. They're traitors for leaving us. But we do love them. And then a couple of friends who are moving with them. And I mean, it's a huge conversation. There's lots of people talking about moving to Texas. There's lots of people talking about moving to Florida, getting out of here. Mm-hmm. And most of the people that we know that have houses somewhere else, they're not here right now.
Yeah.
They're in Arizona, they're in Texas, wherever it may be. And it does feel like we are in a controlled society right now. In LA, if you are in the middle of America, you kind of have to like step outside of what you're going through, because it is actually pretty nuts in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. You cannot order a coffee if you don't have a mask. You can't go in somewhere if you don't have a mask. You sit down at a table outside and they give you hand sanitizer before you touch anything. They give you electronic menu. Then you have to put your mask on. Then you have to order. And then I was getting a coffee today and I saw a family of 3 people. They're sitting outside on a patio having breakfast and they're all wearing their mask and like sneaking food inside of their. I'm going, what? Look, this is the thing. I fully believe there's something going on. Mm-hmm. So we're past that point.
Right.
It's real. I do think things are getting better. Mm-hmm. Everyone that I know that's gone sick has gone healthier now.
We have some people who have passed away.
We do have some friends who have
very
passed
close
away.
To.
Yes. But I think I struggle with it because you are in the demographic that would not make it. You've had the systemic lung issues.
Yeah.
My whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You survived cancer.
Yeah.
You're 62.
Mm-hmm.
You are a very good-looking man, but you fit the demo of the person who should not survive,
or is very vulnerable to
vulnerable.
COVID-19's worst effect.
Worse, and I don't think you've gotten sick one time this year, and so I don't know. Maybe I don't. Anyways, we're going back to it. Go into the executive order stuff.
Right.
I'm just saying, in Los Angeles, it is an uncomfortable situation. People are leaving. People are running away. And it's tough. What is to stay for if you can't see people in one of the greatest cities in the world?
So my question to you and to your entire generation is...
No pressure.
How much of your freedom are you willing to relinquish for the potential of staying safe? Because it seems to me that we are now using the danger of COVID-19 as a way of shifting the way power is used in our nation. And as a citizen, I want you to pay attention because it's easier to lose power than to get it back.
Yes.
And if a year from now there's a vaccine that we're told works, and now we're told it is mandated to get the vaccine, and if you don't get the vaccine, you can't get a job, or you can't go into restaurants, or you can't put your kids in school. We are now in a society where we're no longer free. We are now being told what to do at such a micro level. And so I want to just...
Micro level, I don't know if I can emotionally handle this conversation right now as I am like slightly freaked out by this reality becoming very true. If you live in Texas, Florida, Missouri, mm-hmm. Mississippi, this is not real for you. Right. In the same way that we're feeling this on the coasts, in that you go outside and it feels like a police state in some areas.
Right. And if we have this conversation, immediately you are demonized. You are just thrown into this pit of unintelligent or uncaring or unscientific. And so I want to say this right now because if we have to, I want to come back to this Battle Ready podcast a year from now and say, guys, I warned you that we're going to lose freedoms we may never get back as a society. Because now, see, before, remember, it was flatten the curve. It was going to last a few weeks. It was going to last a few months. Then it's going to last a season. Then it's going to last a year. The language now is this is our new reality. So if COVID-19 is our new reality, then is executive order our new reality?
Interesting connection. I think you're onto something. And now I'm more afraid than I was 30 seconds ago.
And I think that we need to pay attention to this, no matter where you fall on the spectrum of your concern about these issues concerning the virus. I think we need to have some concerns about how our society is shifting and how quickly we are willing to give up our freedoms.
That was the issue. And I think you voiced that pretty early on to people's discomfort, that it wasn't so much about the virus as much as it was our willingness to release our own control over our lives and our own independence and our own freedoms. And it was very quick and very fast, given it was very fear-based. It was the only thing you saw on television, social media, the internet, when you walked outside. I mean, LA went from a packed metropolitan city to traffic to completely empty in a matter of 3 days.
Right. And so what's happening now is that the people who least care about compliance are not complying.
What do you mean by that?
Look, you go to LA, people are partying.
I mean, we went to a wedding reception and it was private, it was small, but I mean, that restaurant was pumping.
And every restaurant in that whole street,
the 3-block radius was
packed with 20-year-olds, jam-packed.
It was actually nuts. It was probably more wild than it would have been pre-pandemic.
Yeah, and what I thought about this morning was how Prohibition did not work.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
people like to party.
We as a government, we decided Prohibition was going to be the law. We're going to stop people from drinking and selling alcohol.
Right.
And it created the space for the mafia. It created the space for an underground economy where people did what they were going to do illegally. And eventually Prohibition flipped. And I just look at the economics of this. We've known for years, for decades, that tobacco kills people. I mean, the tobacco industry, if any industry should be locked down, it's the tobacco industry. And yet we didn't even do anything to stop the tobacco industry from being illegal. And so I'm going, wait a minute.
But you can open that up, right? I'm not advocating for cigarettes, but I'm saying you could say that we all drive a gigantic cigarette.
Our cars.
I
don't. Mine is
electric. But
so I leave no carbon footprint. But I can't speak for the rest of you. Here's what I want to just go back to.
Okay.
Your generation is going to have to decide how much of Prohibition you're going to allow. You're going to have to decide how much your fear will override your desire for freedom.
So here's my question. It feels cigarettes were taxed early. Tobacco was taxed early. It was something that the South farmed, and it was taxed from the very beginning. Whereas alcohol became taxed later after the Prohibition failed, right? And now we have weed, cannabis, being taxed highly. And so now the government allows it. And now we've created a new disaster in which we will be taxed on to have a vaccine. Because what they'll say is it's free, but nothing's free. And we should actually talk about that. That's actually a really good thing that we should segue into, because I think we've gotten some blowback from conference not being free, from our Mosaic conference not being free, and people hitting. I went into your account and deleted it from your DMs, but there was someone blowing me up during the World Series thing and tagging us, and I just didn't want to ruin your night. And some kid who went to Mosaic and was ripping us for during COVID, every mega church is their conference is free and you guys are charging, and tagging us and tagging you, tagging me, tagging Joe Smith, and we're all in the same room, and I saw it, so I was deleted it from yours because I just was I'll tell you later, and I'm telling you now. Sorry.
But I mean, what I would say is the conference is free for everyone who cannot afford it.
Right.
But for anyone who's acts entitled like that, I would just give anything for it not to be free for them.
This was the interesting thing, because I DM'd him because I want all of it. I want the smoke. And so I DM'd him and I said this, because he posted 6 or 7 other things. And not only did he post the 6 or 7 other things, he started reposting what other people were DMing him about Mosaic. So this guy, so I said this. I said, one, his last post on his Instagram was, there's no us versus them, there's only us. And so I commented, you should really read this before you come at my family on Instagram. And then I sent him a DM, because he had sent me all this stuff and tags and all these things. I said, you said you caused us your family, you came to Mosaic for 3 years. Did you bring this up with your family before going to IG? Because I knew that on the conference website, there was, if you can't afford it, shoot us an email and we'll give it to you for free. And then I said, who is your campus pastor / leadership? And then I said, if you had a problem with us, if we had a problem with you, would we post about you, or would we go to you?
Right.
And then he said something really like rude back. Keep asking yourself that, Pastor Aaron. I said, I'm genuinely asking you because it seems like you've already made your decision to not engage in real conversation, and we moved on. But this is my point of like, nothing is free, right?
Everything costs somebody something.
Yeah.
So if you're getting it for free, someone else paid for it.
For sure. Nothing like that. Like us doing the conference is not free. Us using the hosting, us doing the work, us shooting, us having to pay for things, having to do X, Y, Z is not free.
Okay, you just added the third aspect to the conversation today
What?
that I wasn't going to go to, but I think it's really important.
Okay.
Because one of them is the executive order, the
Okay.
loss of our personal freedoms because of fear.
Yes.
The second one is censorship, the inability to argue or disagree.
Yes.
And the third one is entitlement.
Mm.
And if I wanted to create a formula for how to move toward a totalitarian socialist culture,
Yeah.
this is it.
100%.
So I'm just going to throw this out,
Yeah.
okay? And I'm going to get myself in all kinds of heat.
No, it's fine.
And so first of all, I would say, I do not want our governor to be able to use executive order. I want him to advocate for position and let us vote. I want that for my mayor too. Recently, I heard our mayor Garcetti say he was explaining homelessness in LA, which is out of control. It's a massive crisis, and I'm watching this, and he said, you need to understand that when the economy is good, homelessness goes up.
Mayor Garcetti.
Said, and when the economy is
Garcetti.
bad, homelessness goes down.
Google this.
And so I'm listening to this going, so what you're telling us is the only strategy to combat homelessness is to have a bad economy.
Yeah.
And I'm really worried about us creating a governmental system where thought is no longer challenged. And that's the power of voting, is that we get to challenge thinking. So,
Keep going.
So my first thing is executive order going, we need to pay attention to how our mayors, our governors, our presidents are using executive order. I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat. We have a process. And even now when they're talking about expanding the Supreme Court, that's essentially a magnification of executive order being used by the Senate, now controlling the Supreme Court. And what we're going to find is a decay of the balance of power that has actually fundamentally helped this nation.
Are they talking about
progress.
expanding the Supreme Court?
If
she wins?
Or
if she gets...
No, if
what's her name?
Oh,
Sorry.
Amy Barrett?
Yeah,
Amy Barrett,
if
sorry.
Amy Barrett's nominated
Yes.
and Biden is not elected, they're talking about expanding the Supreme Court. So I don't care which side you're on. You need to realize that we're actually moving toward a construct that says we're going to find a way to overpower, and we're going to use our power to dictate our positions, and we're going to move away from a democracy.
But can we just theorize for a second? If they expand the if Amy Barrett gets voted in, if it's voted in, right, gets approved,
Yeah.
Trump wins election, and they expand the Supreme Court, wouldn't there just be another conservative on the Supreme Court?
Well, it's whatever power you steal, you will live with the consequence of someone stealing it later. And that's why I would say whatever you do, just realize the backlash of it is going to come back
No, but
around.
I'm asking, like,
Yes.
would essentially that would be what would happen? Or are they basically saying we will gridlock everything so that it cannot happen?
Well, I think
I'm confused. I haven't heard about this, so I need to do
Yeah.
some more research, and then I can talk about it more with you later.
Yeah, no, it's really just a strategy of saying if we can't win within the rules we have, we're going to create new rules.
Yes.
That's really what's happening.
Yes.
And part of the problem is we're creating new rules that move us toward dictatorial leadership.
Yes.
And that concerns me. The second thing is censorship. I want to go over here. All right. And I know I'm kind of like, I'm a little heated today,
You
even
are
though I'm
heated,
acting very calm.
which is good because I kind of needed I needed a more chill one for me. So I'm glad you're really taking this one.
Censorship's bothering me.
It is.
Okay. Now, remember, this is the country that felt that that Rush Limbaugh deserved the right to speak. And who's the shock jock?
Who? Yell it. Howard Stern.
Okay.
Ugh,
All right.
least
No.
favorite. Not my fan.
This
not a
is
fan.
this is the society that decided that both Rush Limbaugh
right.
and Howard Stern
Right.
had the right to say whatever they wanted.
And that's how we got XFM.
All right. Now, here's the great thing. You don't ever have to listen to Rush Limbaugh, and you never have to listen to Howard Stern, but you can if you want to.
Right.
And you can even listen to both of them if you want. That's the amazing thing about this country. that's becoming less and less true.
It isn't true anymore.
And I wanted to highlight just one thing. It's just one of many things. Because I was reading yesterday about how in somewhere in the Midwest, I don't have the details, there is a group that works against domestic violence, and they decided to put a Black Lives Matter sign up in their different domestic abuse centers.
Right.
And suddenly they were getting defunded because they supported Black Lives Matter.
But
where
were they?
And being defunded by the police department. And the reason I bring that one up is because I want to bring this one up so I don't want anyone to think, oh, I'm just taking one side.
Right.
It's happening on both sides.
Yeah.
But this one really struck me because it's so dramatic, all right? Because one of the phrases in 2020 is you need to trust the science. You need to trust the science. You need to believe in the science. You need to believe in the science. You need to listen to the science.
Who is science?
I know. I'm going like
That's what I'm
science
trying to
is a
figure out.
person, right?
But this has been a joke we've had for a long time. And when people quote science, we're like, who's science? Please tell us who science is.
Yes.
So bring it.
So there is a guy, a man named Michael Levitt.
Uh-oh.
He's a Stanford professor of biophysics.
Great school.
He has a Cambridge PhD and DSc. He's the 2013 Chemistry Nobel Laureate for Complex Systems.
Wow.
He's an FRS and U.S. National Academy member. And he was invited to speak at a conference on computational biology and biodesign. Both disciplines are based on his work, his research. And he's canceled. He was canceled as a keynote speaker because he holds different views about COVID than the accepted line in our public agenda.
Interesting.
So he is canceled as a speaker. He wasn't going to speak about COVID. He was going to speak about computational biology and biodesign. But other speakers, and several of them are speakers I'm familiar with from the TED conference, they complained to the event and said, if he speaks, we will not speak.
Wow.
So I'm going, okay.
We are in the middle of this.
Right. So
like, this is real. This is very real. We are in it now. It's beyond cancel culture. It's actually a shift of what you were able.
It's a censorship.
It's a censorship. It is the removal of freedom of speech.
Right. So if I say
or
something
the freedom
about
to
COVID-19,
be honest.
right?
Yes.
If I say something that disagrees with WHO, and by the way, WHO just changed its mind about quarantines, but that's a side note. If I say something about the CDC or WHO or science, you might go, hey, Erwin McManus, you don't know anything. You're not a scientist, Right. And but if I actually won the Nobel laureate in 2013, if I am a Stanford professor in biophysics and a Cambridge PhD and DSc, and I have a different view of the information of the science, and I'm coming up with different conclusions, even if you disagree with me, I should be allowed to give my perspective. And what concerns me is that we now have these technological algorithms that can weed out everyone who disagrees. And so here's the thing. Here's my question. Okay, first one, executive order. No, I am against executive order as a principal mechanism for governing. I believe in democracy. I think people should be able to vote on every issue possible. Secondly, I do not agree with censorship. I think that you should be allowed to speak your mind no matter how stupid, ignorant, or incorrect you are. That a part of what makes this country what rare and unique is that we are allowed to protest and disagree and debate, and we can debate about the science as well. And I'm concerned because now we have censorship is now conformity. If you do not conform to the agreed upon narrative, if you have any other kind of perspective on the data, not opinion, even if you're an expert and you disagree, you no longer are allowed to speak. And I want to come back to this a year from now or 5 years from now, because if we're living in a society that's now dictated through executive order, and if we're living in a society where censorship is now the norm, and suddenly you find yourself on the wrong side of the conversation, I want you to remember that we talked about this, because if you're a conservative and you use censorship, one day liberals will use the censorship on you. And if you're a liberal and you think, oh, censorship is our best strategy for this moment, I'm telling you, one day there's going to be backlash and conservatives are going to censor you. What do we need to do to get liberals and conservatives to trust in the power of their own ideas enough and in the intelligence of the American people enough to let there be open dialogue, open conversations, stop censoring people, stop telling us what to do, and let us make our own decisions based on the information that's out there.
Yes. I mean, I think everything you're saying is valid. Everything you're saying is terrifying. Everything you're saying is something we talk about quite often. And even though we haven't quite talked about this, we both had thoughts about this last night when we talked on the drive home. And we were laughing about a few things. Then you walked in, you're like, let's talk about this. And we're like, okay. I do think more than ever, you are unable to be who you are in every arena, not just in a political landscape, but whether it's in faith or church or school or family, different cultures, different family systems. You have different expectations. At what point in our life will we get to the place where we stop not having no expectation for each other, but going, the expectations that we have are not the primary focus of your life? Because what I do end up thinking is that we create this unhealthy pressure on each other to not just mandate to believe what I believe, but to live up to something that I see you as. And to some degree, it is healthy to have goals and expectations and standards and to understand achievements. But what you're saying about that man, Michael Levitt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Michael Levitt, was that his name?
That's his name.
That it does not matter what you achieve if you don't conform, you're gone. You're thrown away. He could have no more achievements under his belt to deserve 15, 20 minutes of a lecture at a conference. But because he believes in something different. And I do think that's the interesting thing about the world right now, because in the 70s, not that the 70s were like the highlight of our country's era, like the era of our highlight of the 70s were not the highlight. But it was an era of believing something different, of searching, of finding, of exploring. And a lot of it was unhealthy. But at least it was in a direction of no judgment. And I feel like now we're in this place where it feels very police state. Mm-hmm. Like the same people who fight the police, defund the police, are becoming the police.
Yeah.
And that to me is scary.
Yeah, even where we live, the woman across the street from our house would text your mom, my wife, Kim, and say, did I just see someone show up at your house?
Most of the time it was me. She
would be texting going, wait a minute, you have too many people in your house right now. And Kim would go, this is who I have, and then finally Kim started saying, hey, how about this? You don't police me, I don't police you. And what's so funny is that this woman would have a masseuse come almost every single day to her house.
Yeah,
they had chefs coming to their house every day.
Nannies.
Because she finally appealed to your mom saying, well, I had a miscarriage. And Kim felt so terrible. She goes, what can I do? Who can I send you? And she goes, oh, no, I have healthcare nurses. I have everybody here. And all of a sudden we realized she has so many people come to her house, but the best way to not get caught is to turn other people in. And that's what's going to happen to our society. This is what happened in the Czech Republic. And when after the Velvet Revolution, when the Soviet Union finally was pushed back, and
it was brothers turning in brothers.
They realized pastors were turning in pastors, and members were turning in members, and family members were turning in family members. And do we want to become this kind of police state where we're policing each other based on our actions? And I'm concerned.
It feels, I think, to most people who are listening, they're going, this can't be real, this can't be true. But the moment that we're, I think, quite like global warming, when everyone 20 years ago was like, there's no way, we're good. The world is so big. And now we realize, we're like, okay, no, we're in a place now in our world, in our environment, where we realize that all of the fossil fuels, all the emissions, we are now at the place where we were 20 years ago with global warming, that we are with this political reform, this police state, that if we do not actually, and I don't know what the action steps are, but we have to change the culture. It's got to affect the culture, and then it's got to change the politics. Then as a society, we have to take, I don't want to say control because it feels so aggressive, but I mean, we have to take responsibility for our own actions, our own voting, our own procedures, and not letting politicians, whoever they are, left or right, decide for us by executive order or mandates locally on a local government that will restrict our freedoms. And it does not matter what political party you believe in, although I do think both main political parties have scary areas, right? And we're at a place now that if we do not acknowledge that we're 10 years away, 15 years away, 20 years away, maybe 5 years away from a space where we are going to be in such a place of fear that America will not be the land of the free. It will be the land of the I don't know what would be. I don't even know a second phrase to even compare it to.
Yeah, to me, what's amazing is that basically we have a situation where we have unhinged versus entrenched.
And
what
do you mean by that, though?
Like people are voting against Donald Trump because he's unhinged.
Yes.
I mean, he just can't seem to filter himself on Twitter. He just can't seem to avoid saying things that are antagonistic,
volatile at times.
Just out of touch with human empathy.
Yeah.
And then you have entrenched. I look at, Joe Biden has been working in Washington for almost 50 years.
I do not like that, though.
And no, I don't. What I'm saying is that I do not believe anyone in your generation would actually be voting for entrenched, except they're voting against unhinged.
Yes.
And I'm looking, I'm going, I don't trust lifelong politicians. I'm sorry. That just isn't the way I'm designed psychologically or the way I see the world. And so it concerns me. And then when you have lifelong politicians now moving into an environment where executive order seems to be the easiest way to get things done, and we're talking about restructuring the balance of power, which tells me, well, wait a minute. I've never known anyone in history who had the opportunity to restructure the balance of power and didn't take power. So I'm not really confident in government's ability to decentralize power. And we need to move to the third area, which is entitlement. And I think that a part of the challenge that we have right now is we've had 10 months where people have been furloughed, moved to unemployment, have been working part-time from home, have gotten at least some supplemental paychecks to help them. And I hear a tidal wave of conversations of people who just don't want to go back to work, of people who are not interested in going back to, quote, normal, where they went to a business or a company or a building and did their job. And I hear a lot of people saying, well, why can't we work from home forever? As if businesses...
You have CEOs saying that. I think that's the biggest issue, is all the tech giants, for the most part, have said, well, we'll never see you again. Work from home.
And tech companies, I guess that will work, right? Really well.
To some degree.
And here's my point, is that if that works best for a company, that makes sense. But if that becomes the new normal, society saying, we don't really want to go back to work. And what spurred this in my mind is I was listening to different speakers, and I heard AOC make a statement about they think you being free is you having to go back to work. And when I heard that, I thought, yes. See, a huge part of my freedom is my right to go back to work. I do not see work as forced labor on my life. I see work as a privilege and a responsibility and an opportunity. And going back to the guy, I'm assuming it was a guy who was upset about the conference. And
wait, hold on. AOC is single-handedly destroying her district. Just so that's clear. And if you don't know who she is, you should Google her. And not what the left says about her, but what she's actually done, especially with the Amazon deal that she blew for her district.
Right, the Amazon deal is...
It would have brought 100,000 jobs to her district.
Right, but that's not the solution.
And what do you mean that's not the solution?
From her philosophy.
From her philosophy. From her philosophy, it's everyone doesn't need to work, they get paid.
Yeah. And by the way,
they get a stipend. They're taking care.
It's not singular to her. Several years ago, when I was at the TED conference, I remember one of the speakers spoke, and he said that he was advocating for a universal minimum wage where everyone gets a salary, whether they work or not in the United States.
And this is the tough thing, because it's a great ideal. But I
don't even think you're a better human being. I don't even think it's a great ideal. I think
because this is the thing. I like internally. I would love universal healthcare. I would love everyone to make a base salary. I think that there are things that we could do better in our society. Things that are like natural gases. When people are when singular people are making billions and so much like God level money on gas. Like fossil fuels that are in our earth, like that should go to fund schools and I do believe that. I do really do believe that. But I also really do believe that if that guy found the oil, then it's his and he can take it and sell it and figure out how to do something. I'm both sides, and that's where it doesn't match up.
Well, where it concerns me, is the effect on human drive.
Yes.
That if everyone gets whatever $25,000, $35,000 a year, just base.
I'm not.
Okay, 50,000. What do you guys say? 75,000 is what it takes to be happy.
I wonder what it is in Sweden. It's I think it's I think it's 45 to 50,000 in Sweden.
75,000 is supposed to be the cutoff of happiness. That if you make any above 75,000, it doesn't really increase your happiness very much. But it isn't about happiness. It's also about productivity. Some people need to have more than $75,000 a year because they will do more with that money. They'll be more productive. They'll create more jobs. And I think the problem is that we have the static view of economics, that you give a person money and then they get to live on it. You give one person $75,000 and they will live on $75,000. You give another person $75,000, they're going to live on $25,000, invest $50,000, and come out with $1.2 million. No matter how you start, if you create an economy or an environment where people can create their future based on their ambition and their intention, their discipline, their determination, and their ability.
Things will not. You know what's ironic about this episode?
What's that?
We talked about free speech and censorship, and you censored me.
Yes, I did. Because you asked me.
We are in the reality.
Because
we are in the new reality.
Because you asked me in the first episode, hey, if I say something you think I'll regret later, to protect you.
Okay. Okay.
Right, that's what we do.
I censored myself. My bad. Okay. We're back. We're back.
Is that the argument for the? I don't know. Never mind.
Is that the argument? Is that the argument for? Is that the argument for the left with vaccine?
We're protecting the world.
We pay you to protect us, and so now you're protecting us.
Okay. So
this is very interesting.
No, this is interesting.
But I would say this because we're not going to play what I said about AOC because it was rude. Especially the way I said it with such disdain. Mm-hmm. I do not agree with her politics. I don't really like her as a politician. I don't know her as a person. But we're going back, and what I said, and I referred back to the clip that we cut out, is that you censored me on an episode about censorship.
Yes, I did. And so, hey guys, so you're not hearing everything that was said.
No.
It's because I censored what Aaron said. And so did our team. We have kind of a group think here. And
Brian is fired up and ready to go too.
And even though, and I think it was mixed. Some people would disagree with what you said, and some would have disagreed with how you said it. And so here's the thing. We have to learn how to say things with a level of respect, even if we don't change what we say.
But I didn't critique her as a person.
No, you didn't. But what you said could have been interpreted as a very,
and that is the
negative
problem of the state in which we live in.
Yes.
Because if I say LeBron James is a trash basketball player, but he's won how many championships now? 4? With 3 different teams in 10 years? That isn't true. But when I lose 100,000 jobs for my district, but I want everyone to get a stipend and live on welfare, essentially, or an elevated welfare, that is me critiquing the way that she gets to her desired outcome, which I'm like, I don't know that she's been in politics long enough to have a healthy desired outcome, to have seen longevity in which she wants to create, in the world in which she wants to create.
Well, I try to take people from what they say and to treat their position respectfully.
I'm Googling right now.
And so my perspective is that she believes socialism is the best future for America. And would you say that's fair, Brian?
Yeah.
And so like if you call a person a socialist who isn't one, that's actually
like when I would call you a socialist.
Yes, when you call me a socialist. Okay, yes, and that can be insulting, or you're trying to stereotype a person.
Yes.
But if someone says I'm a socialist, and then it's not unfair, nor is it demeaning to say that person is a socialist, because they believe that that's the philosophy or ideology that works best. And what I'd say is like, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this more in the months and months to come.
Okay.
Because the issue for me is about entitlement, that when you feel you deserve things you did not work for or you did not earn, just by the fact that you exist. And so,
And part of me is like, if you want to cash out at 75 grand a year, give it to them. But give the rest of it to everyone else who's willing to take nothing but invest everything and build. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you want security, take it. I want the high risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there isn't that, like, if we lived in a world where like, okay, if I need the 75,000, this is what I need to live and feed my family and everything, amazing, take it. But all of the other stuff on the table, the stuff that you don't see that we're going to figure out how to turn into a product or turn into a new reality, you don't get any of that.
right.
Does that make sense? Like, if we lived in that world, red pill, blue pill, I'm in.
Right. And it just rhymes with something else AOC said. She said, I don't want their money, I want their power. And speaking about like Bill Gates and Steve
Who was
Jobs.
the last other person that said that? Darth Vader? Is that Darth Vader that said that? Yeah, probably.
No, but here's my point in this. You see, I'm maybe this is a part of me that I'm going to make it really relate to my life.
You feel so uncomfortable right now.
Oh no,
What?
But I think this is so important.
It is very important. Also, this dialogue is important.
Yeah, I was in a room one time years and years ago.
Okay.
With pastors, and
We know where this is going now.
and I can tell you what pastors were not in the room.
Okay.
The ones they were all criticizing. They were all speaking badly about 3 or 4 of the pastors whose churches were largest and most impactful in the world.
Yeah.
And they were, and it was so easy because every one of them felt a sense of worth by demeaning the other pastors. And I remember I finally interjected because I was incredibly uncomfortable, and I said, "Hey guys, why can't we just accept the fact that they're more gifted than us? Why can't we just accept the fact that maybe they're more effective leaders than us? They've taken more risks than us. They've been more courageous than us. Why do we have to try to demean them and bring them down beneath us so that we feel better about ourselves?"
Yeah.
See, I've always, and because, see, in the world I'm in, people go, why can't every church be 50 people? Why do you have to have a church of 5,000 or a church of 10,000 or a church of 20,000? And I keep telling them, look, you put a person with a unique gift set with 10 people and they'll have 1,000 people in a year. You put a person without that gift and talent set, a year later, those 10 people will still be those 10 people, or maybe there won't even be 10.
And we've tried to start smaller churches and they grow.
But
I want to say this real quick. This also, I think, correlates to the conversation we were having earlier. A part of the criticism with the entitlement was that it was the comparison of your conference isn't free, but every other megachurch's conference is.
Yeah.
The perception of Mosaic is that we're a megachurch, but we're really not.
No.
We have a. I hate the word mega. I think it's so old.
Yeah.
Except for Megatron, that's the classic. We have a mega influence. We have an unequal influence to our size.
But we don't own one single piece of property.
Right. We don't own a single piece of property. And the other call out was, well, you got $5 million from the community. Yeah, 3 million of the 5 was from 2 people. So that's one thing. But the other thing was that $5 million doesn't even buy you a house in our neighborhood. Like in this neighborhood where Hollywood's at, you can buy probably a 2-bedroom like house for $5 million. Like it is so insanely expensive to scale. So our influence is so far beyond, right? Beyond scale, like scaling up beyond these megachurches for the size that we are in. And so you look at we were talking about a 20 million building project, and these megachurches are going, yeah, you'll do it, easy. We do it all the time. You know what I'm saying? But it was hard for us to go like we have the influence, we don't have the size. And then you go to the entitlement side.
Yeah, and that whole conversation is an entitlement conversation because it's interesting. The 2 or 3 people who actually gave a huge amount of money, they've never asked for anything for free.
They don't even come to church on Sundays.
They don't even come here because they gave it for others, not for themselves.
Yes.
And
so when people call us out for being a profit-based church, I'm like, if it wasn't for your relationships, Mosaic would be a very underfinanced church.
Yeah, and if it wasn't, honestly, for times where we went to the bank, got a line of credit on our house.
We meaning you and my mom personally.
That's right. Kim and I had to go, not just once, take money out of the bank, get a line. One time we had to get a line of credit on our house to make up $100,000 deficit just to keep the church functioning. And we never went public on things like that. We just did it all those years. So when someone says, oh, you have all this money, going, you don't know how much we sacrificed and invested. Mosaic has not been for us a financial benefit. It has been a place where we've invested and given our lives. But the whole point of that is that
Wait, I want to say one more thing,
Yeah.
because I think that needs to be highlighted. So when people call Mosaic out for being a profit-based church, or why do you sell everything? Why do you charge? Because when I came back from New York City, we made a decision. We are not going to be the broke church anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if you cannot afford it, to anyone who has ever asked, we have always gotten them in.
Yeah. In fact, you were upset that it didn't have a free option.
And I was mad. And now I'm more mad because that guy will think we did it because of him.
Right.
And I hope he doesn't come back, because I don't want that spirit.
Right.
You know what I mean? If he comes back and apologizes, sure. But that was the whole point of why we charge for things, because we actually believe that there's a value connected to it.
And it's about not creating a culture of entitlement.
Yes.
It's about recognizing the value of things and
helping a generation understand that it shouldn't be free. Not only that it shouldn't be free, it should be so overtly financed by people so generous and sacrificial that it goes not just for the few that can afford it, but for everyone else in the world. The conversation should not be $40 for a conference. It's going to be 12 hours, or like 8 hours of like actually changing your life. It should be about the millions and millions of dollars to get this on television, to spread this around the world. Why isn't this on every single thing? If they can put a Jay-Z album on every Samsung phone, why shouldn't an MSC album or messages from you that will actually bring life change to people be at the same caliber in which the rest of the world sees everything else? But because we're so small-minded, because we're so worried about this smallest portion. And you know what? If you're going through financial trouble, 100%, this is not the point. Because I was mad that it wasn't free.
You were mad it wasn't free. You wanted to be free for so many people.
I'm like, if you can't afford it, we trust you.
Yeah.
Let it be free. And then we did 40 and 80 because we said, you know what? Like, if you can pay and you want to know the value we're setting this at, 40 and 80.
Yeah. But we don't even monitor that.
We don't even monitor it. You can not tell us the truth.
Right. And the whole point for me is that we're moving toward an entitlement culture. And I see this as a systemic, toxic perspective toward life, where the government should give me this, the church should give me this, society should give me this, and the reality is that in a free society, the best thing you're given is opportunity. And if you can get opportunity, you've been given a great gift. And that's why people from all over the world are trying to come here. That's why Trump's trying to build a wall, because there are millions of people who are trying to come into this country, because this is a country with incredible opportunity.
Which I would love to do a whole episode on that, because I was in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta 2 weeks ago, and like whenever they meet an American, they're like, "Oh, how's the wall going?" Because they're like it's the dumbest. Like, only Americans think that the wall is keeping Mexican people out.
Yeah,
it's like a piece of, like, we are so manipulated by our own politics.
Yeah.
Both on the left and the right. So this isn't, but like, but when you go to Mexico and they're like, "Oh, that's funny," like, no, we fly there. We don't. Like, what are you talking about? It was such an interesting perception and perspective from other people. But keep going. I'm sorry. We got to wrap this up.
So I think we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say, this is a time capsule conversation. I have concerns about executive order, living in a country where dictatorship becomes the common replacement for democracy. Censorship, where we're no longer able to give dissenting views, and our society begins to filter things out based on what agrees with the government. And that scares me.
And to be really honest, this may not make it on iTunes. This may not make it on Google. This may not make it on Twitter. This may not make it on Instagram.
Because we could get censored.
100%.
And then the third thing is entitlement. That I wish, and I'm gonna throw this out, even though it should be at the end, that we had taken those multi-trillion dollars that we use to give people supplemental income during the layoffs. I wish we had taken $3 trillion and financed everyone over 60 years old and everyone who's vulnerable, and said, we're going to take care of you. We're going to give you a salary and income. You're going to make sure you have a place to live. You have food. You can pay your mortgage. You can pay your rent. And we're going to make sure you have all the health care necessary. Everyone else, go to work and live your life. I think those trillions of dollars would have been better spent focused on the elderly and the vulnerable, rather than giving everyone a short-term Band-Aid for an economy that's in ruins now. And we need to step back and rethink. And if we do not allow conflicting conversations, we can't get to a higher level of thinking.
I wish they'd given $2 trillion to everyone 60 above. I wish they'd given $1 trillion to Bezos and said, anything that you make plus this, we're going to give back we're going to seed money for the future of tech and education and automobile innovation and spaceships and all the things. Because we make such a bad investment in our own selves at times that I wonder what would you do if like Amazon ran the post office? Because have you tried to order something from the post office or gone to the DMV in the last like 10 years? It's like trying to find a dollar bill in a tornado.
Well, the first cultural step toward entitlement is class warfare. And so if you gave $1 billion to Bezos, you would be violating this view of entitlement.
Right.
And I think it's exciting when you think about that nothing is able to hold back innovation, creativity, ingenuity. And if there's a disproportionate benefit of wealth, hey, let's work on that. But let's not create a society where we convince everyone you deserve what you don't work for.
Yeah.
And let's create a society where we go, everyone deserves the right to create their best life and the best opportunities to make that happen. And I want that kind of world going forward. Anyway, I know this has been controversial. Please.
This has been controversial with me and you. Like, we're going to have a conversation after this conversation about, are we good?
Yeah.
Are we good? Are we okay?
No, we're good. We're good.
He said, no, we're good. He tells the truth in the first word. Can I do the formalities?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you've been listening to this, we are so grateful that you've stuck with us the whole time. We have some new merch. I said it was dropping Friday. We didn't get the samples back till today. We'll shoot some photos. We'll put it on the website.
Got my battle ready?
We have a battle ready crew neck. We have a battle ready hat. I'm wearing it right now. We have a battle ready shorts, because in LA you wear shorts year round. So we're probably going to throw a long sleeve up as well. These are great Christmas gifts. This is just something fun that we get to like put out and kind of do. And so if you're listening to the podcast, you want to be a part of what we're building here, you can go on erwinmcmanus.com and you can buy the merch starting probably tomorrow.
And even though getting Battle Ready is free to the listener,
yeah,
it costs a lot of money to make Battle Ready happen.
Definitely. So I don't know what to say. I feel awkward now. You can rate and review us on iTunes. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can watch us on YouTube. And there's a few other things you can do as well. You can go to the Battle Ready Podcast Instagram, at Battle Ready Podcast. There's a link tree in there, and you can see all the different places that we sell merch and all the things we do. And also, just thank you so much for being a part of it. On emails, I am behind. My best friend got married. He had a bachelor party the week before. He got married this weekend. It has been a full-time job. I love him. He's gone. He's flown the coop. He's been my roommate for 4 years. Matt Pagan, we love you. And I will get back to the emails this week.
And Sammy Pagan, we love you too.
Sammy Pagan, we do love you. We do love you.
Hey, buddy, this has been fun.
It has been fun.
I hope you don't get too many hate DMs and emails and texts.
I'm sure they're coming.
Okay. All right, until the next Battle Ready.
Permission to disagree.
Here we go.
Goodbye.
All right, take care, guys.